steering line, getting it off, it's going to be pretty easy. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go ahead and drain the fluid out of the system, and we'll replace that filter as well. So I'm going to run and grab a bucket to dump this in, since I know I'm about to spill it. I always try to catch the oil, try not to spill it on the ground. I do all the time, but I try to catch it if I can. So I'm going to grab one of my buckets and that filter. So it's back at the camper. We'll grab that stuff, and then I'll be right back. So give me just a minute. Alright, so it's the same day. I changed shirts because I had to run into town real quick, and I forgot to change it again when I came back. I like this shirt. I hope I don't ruin it, but if I do, it is what it is. So I've got my bucket, and I've got, this is the power steering filter. I put that in. First thing that we will need to do is take the line apart, and it is a, I think that's going to be a 1-inch line. 1-inch wrench, that is. Let's find out. Nope, 7/8. 7/8 wrench. Now I've got my bucket under here. We'll see how good of a job I do at catching this. If I spill it all over the ground, the system doesn't hold very much. Which is why, wait a minute. Yeah, okay. That's why this is a really annoying leak. It's not actually that bad of a leak, but the system only holds a couple quarts of oil. And so it doesn't take very long to get empty, and then my power steering stops working. I have to get out and refill it. So that's just a pain. Okay, not as much of that came out as I thought would. We're also going to be changing this filter, and so I'll show you that in just a minute. Let me go over to the other side real quick, so hang on. Okay, so this is the other side of that line that I just took apart. On the other side, this is the line that's on the bottom. And over here, it's the one that's on the side closest to the side. Okay, so that's it. It's completely disconnected. Now, what we're going to do here is, first of all, earplug trick. Take yourself one of these foam earplugs, squish it down, stick it in there. That's going to expand inside there, and that'll help keep stuff out of there. I also have some bags that I'm going to put over there with a zip tie and make sure no water gets into the system while I'm gone. Alright, so I'm going to go disconnect the battery. I just arced the starter with the cable, or the line. Alright, let's try this again. Where were we? Let's see it from the other side. There we go. Let's see here. Where did I touch it this time? So, let me show you real quick. These are the braze repairs that was done to it before. I believe it's this top one right in here somewhere that's leaking. And that's, I'd talked about, or I'd thought about, just trying to repair their braze repair. What happens though is they probably didn't flush the inside of this line out, like with acetone or something, to clean it all out, and then properly dry it and clean it. And so they probably ended up with some porosity in there. Probably right there, actually, at the that base. It looks like they have a little bit of a slag inclusion right there. That's probably what's causing this leak. Now the problem is, to repair that, I mean, it becomes very difficult. Once you get it in there, you kind of have to just grind it all out, and well, that means grinding probably into the base metal at this point. Now what I think happened is they arced it on the starter the way that I just did, pulling it out, and see. I can't see where that arc was. It was just a little one. But that probably created a weak point in the line. And that's probably what caused the initial leak. So anyway, this is it. This is what I'm going to remake. So I'll measure this and figure out how long it is. I'll buy something that's a little bit longer. And let's look at this. I'll have to figure out what kind of fittings these are. So this is a flare fitting, but let me see, it's got kind of a collar on the back side of it there. So I'll have to do a little bit of research and figure out exactly what kind of connection that is. I think I will be able to just flare the end of the new. Alright, so it's kind of hard to see, but right here, see that's like a acorn nut, and this entire kind of canister comes off and the filter's inside of there. So I just need to get that little acorn nut off of there, and then we'll pull that canister off, and that is the reservoir. Once that comes off, all the system will drain out, and then we'll be able to get to the filter inside of there. So I don't think I'm going to be able to show you that very well. Let me just pull it off, and then I'll show you what's under it. Alright, so the cover's right there. You can see that's where that filter's at. So we're going to take that nut off that you can see, and it's kind of got a little bit of a spring preload on there. We'll put the new filter on and just reassemble this whole thing just the way it came off. One thing to note, oh dang. Okay, well, we're going to have to wait. You see that? I was about to say, one thing to note is that there's an O-ring in here, so check it before you put it back together. This one's trash. So, I'll have to get that O-ring. And that's kind of the way this day's been going. We'll still put that back on there just to kind of keep the system sealed off from bugs, moisture, whatever, but it is not waterproof, so make sure, I guess, after just make sure you're aware that if you're replacing this filter, don't do what I did, have the O-ring on hand. I didn't, so that's a bummer. So, alright. Once again, this is going to be hard to show with the mount just because of how dark it is in there, and the only way that I can get good light on it like this puts the camera right in my way. So yeah, let me get this replaced and I'll show you the new one. This is the new filter. One note, there is a little washer that goes on here. Make sure you don't lose that. Make sure you get it on there, because it's not going to work if you don't. Yeah, and then there's the spring and the nut, and that nut I just barely cracked it open. That's a 9/16, and then I was able to take it off by hand the rest of the way. So, and then just another thing to keep in mind is you are working inside the power steering pump right now, even though it doesn't really seem like it, so make sure you got clean hands. So that's temporarily reassembled, no O-ring up there, and I did not see an O-ring come off of this backside, but there should be something on there. That's just a metal to metal contact, and that part is under oil. So I'll look around in the oil pan and see if I can find an O-ring in there, but there should be something, like maybe a flat washer with a rubber backup or something like that. There should be something in there to seal that acorn nut that I took out. So man, unfortunate this O-ring's jacked, but yeah, no big deal. We're waiting on parts anyway. So let me fish around here and see if I can find something. I was able to catch most of this oil, and if not, I'll probably just find an O-ring that's about that size and put it on there, and we'll see if it works. If not, then I'll figure out what's actually supposed to be there per the prints. Actually, in the meantime, I'll find what's supposed to be there per the prints and show you, or I'll tell you about it anyway. So this is my power steering line that came off the tractor. As you guys remember, it's got these braze repairs on it, right? And one of them, I think it's this one, is leaking. So it's probably got some porosity there in the in that braze repair that's causing it to leak. I thought about trying to replace or to fix this repair, but once you get that porosity in there, it's really hard to get it back out, and especially on this thin wall tubing, it turns into kind of a trick. And so I had reached out to Case Dealership and asked them if I could just buy one from them. They actually couldn't get me that line, so I told you guys I was probably just going to make a new one, and so I did. Here's the new one. Got nice brand new fittings. These are kind of interesting. I've not actually seen these before. Focus. Oh, anyway. But this little piece on the end here is just kind of a, it's like a backup for the flare, right? So this is this little collar slides up here, and then that gives this a nice kind of sharp edge, nice shoulder for this to actually sit up against. So when I bought these, I wasn't quite sure if I was buying the right thing. I've not used this type of system before, but it appears to be correct. So if we compare them kind of side by side here, get this one, kind of hard to see. It seems to match pretty well. So, all right, let's see if it fits. So, just poke it through here. You guys can't see what I'm doing. Now, remember on this side, put the earplug in here to keep water and bugs and stuff out. So, let's see. Just a piece of a wiring harness in there that I had to kind of get around. Now, I'm just going to set this on here. I'm not actually really going to start it yet. Let's go make up the other side and just get it started, and we'll tighten this side down first and then the other side, because on this one, on this side, it sits at a weird angle, and that's kind of the one that's going to be important, that it's perfect the way that it's all tightened on there. The other side is just kind of a straight pull, and so it should be, if it's off just a little bit, that tightening that one up should kind of flex the whole piece of tube in order to tighten it down correctly. So I didn't make any video of making that. If you guys want to see how to bend tube, it's a little bit tricky because you lose some of your dimension in the radius of the bend. You know, so if you measure to, like, say 6 inches, and that's where you want to put the bend, well, now you have to decide if that bend is going to be the start of the bend, the end of the bend, or the middle of the bend, and how you put it in the bender. And I just have a hand bender. How you put it in there determines where your measurement falls within the bend, if that makes sense. So you have to be real careful of that. So if you guys want to see that, let me know. And I had bought some extra of this just in case I messed it up on the first time. Like I said, it is kind of tricky. So I've got enough material, I can make another one. And by the way, 6 foot of that tubing on McMastercar.com was $6.47. So that's very cheap. And benders themselves are not super expensive, so if you get into a weird situation where you need a piece of hardline and maybe you can find it, but it's going to cost you like hundreds of dollars, you might think about just buying a bender and a flare tool, and if you need a flare tool, and you may not, but and just bending one up yourself. So pretty cheap to do it, and you can afford to try it a couple times at $6 for a 6 foot stick. Turns out this is about 3 foot long, so I can actually make 2 of them out of one 6 foot stick. So let's go to the other side, and we'll make sure I've got everything threaded through here kind of correctly. All right, so this is the connection that I need to hit. I'm off by just a little bit on the other side, but I think if I can get this one started, I'll be able to make that up. that started. Let's go look at the other side again. Alright, so this is what I was trying to explain earlier, is that, see how my angle's not quite right on this? That's going to make this side really hard to get started. Okay, well, maybe not. So, okay, so that's started. Now, hopefully whenever I pull all this tight and pull it all together, that makes up for any kind of inaccuracies. I may be having to make another one of these. If we turn this on, it starts leaking everywhere real crazy. So if that happens, I mean, no big deal. I've got the extra material, and it's not too difficult to bend. So, all right, I'm gonna tighten all that up, and I'll show you when it's done. All right, it fit. It was pretty tight. There was one dimension that I know I kind of missed, one bend that I wasn't just super confident in, but I wanted to try this before I started making another one. And I actually did bring the tools home with me. So, see it right there. Comes up, connects right there. So this is what I was talking about, where this one's kind of a straight connection. So this was just a tad short, but since it's a straight connection, I was able to use the threads to kind of pull it up. So we'll see if that seals. Unfortunately, I have to get a new O-ring for the power steering pump, so I can't test that yet. Alrighty, so got the new O-ring that I've been waiting on. One of them anyway. This is one for the power steering reservoir. So I've just got this hand tight down in here. So, acorn nut. This guy. Okay, so that's the actual reservoir. And then our O-ring. I'm going to put on, now this is where you get in here to change the filter if you don't remember. Go ahead and get this O-ring on here. So if you're doing your power steering filter, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and have that O-ring on hand. And that is the case part number right there, if you need one. In my case, the O-ring was pretty much shot. It was shot, not pretty much, it was completely shot. And this is all pretty straightforward. This just goes on here. And tricky part is lining the bolt up. There it is. Okay. Now, one thing, this doesn't seem to have a seal on it. And there wasn't an O-ring or anything that came off of there. To me, though, there probably should be. So that might leak, and if that happens, I'll get a O-ring that I can stick in there. So it's pretty much all there is to it. Of course, I'll grab a wrench, we'll tighten that down, and then we'll refill the system.